Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, 5 days ago, the Russian naval fleet had positioned themselves with nuclear weapons close to Norway. And I think we have to understand the context. In this Newsweek article, they didn't really say exactly why they did that. But considering that Seymour Hersh did expose the involvement of Norway as well as the United States, to a certain extent also the Danes and the Swedes, in the destruction of Nord Stream 2, it makes a lot of sense to me at least. You see, the destruction of Nord Stream 2, according to Seymour Hersh, and he's a very credible journalist, he's had a long history of, exposing war crimes by the U.S. government, such as the My Linh massacre in Vietnam, as well as the Abu Ghraib torture scandal, and so forth. Plus, he has a vast connection, within the Pentagon, I've heard. But nonetheless, Seymour Hersh claims that, his two sources in the article claims that divers were trained in Panama, and they also used Norwegian help later on. In fact, they had planned to destroy this pipeline a year even before the war in Ukraine. But because this is the problem, NATO, there is a saying, right? The NATO wants to keep Germany down and Russia isolated. So one of the reasons why they destroyed the Nord Stream 2 was because if Germany now, let's say, would have rolled back on some of their sanctions on Russia, they can't get their gas back if we destroy the pipeline, right? Secondly, why did the Norwegians get involved? The Norwegians got involved because they wanted to earn more money. The Norwegians have gas supplies themselves. They have oil supplies. They wanted to sell this gas to the rest of Europe, and in particular Norway, right? And Norway was specifically targeted because they have a lot of skilled divers. They know the area very well, and they have good spy technology, as far as I remember from the article. So that's the reason why the Russians pretty much deploy their naval fleet. And it wouldn't surprise me if Russia would take Norway to a UN court, some international court of some sort, because Norway is part of all those bodies, right? So they can actually be charged with, I don't know exactly what, terrorism, I assume, because this is, the destruction of infrastructure, which half is owned by, the 49% is owned by, a lot of EU states. So yes, America is attacking its own allies. Incredible, right? Not so much, really. But it goes like this. Warships in the Russian Navy's Northern Fleet have been deployed with tactical nuclear weapons, the Norwegian intelligence service said in a report released on Monday. The intelligence agency noted the presence of the weapons on the vessels in its annual report. It is believed that this is the first time in 30 years that the fleet has gone to sea with the nuclear weapons on board. A central part of their nuclear capabilities is located on the North Fleet's submarines and surface vessels, the report said. Norway's intelligence went on to describe the particularly serious threat that Russia's tactical nuclear weapons pose to NATO countries. In addition, Russia has, among other things, underwater capabilities, anti-satellite weapons, and cyber tools that can threaten Norway and NATO. But wait, I thought Russian military was a primitive army that has no competency, right? I don't get, what the fuck? But anyway, the Soviet Union's Northern Fleet warships often went to sea equipped with nuclear weapons during the Cold War, Politico reported. But the latest development reportedly marks the first time the Russian Federation has deployed the ships with nuclear weapons. Norway's report also detailed the increased importance of nuclear weapons for Russia, now that the nation's defense budget is set to increase by 34% in 2023. I actually thought about something, because a lot of these Scandinavian countries are, they're flexing their little muscles, right? And I live in Sweden, and you know, our economy is going down the toilets. There are reports that say that Sweden has the worst economy in Europe right now. And when your economy is bad, it is not uncommon that politicians want to distract with war or war propaganda, the attempt to go to war. So I want people to keep that in their minds. Anyway, the weakened conventional capability and the importance of nuclear weapons for Russia has increased significantly, the report said. This is funny. They say that Russia has a weakened conventional capability. In our last video, we spoke about how almost all the ammunition depots in Europe and the United States is empty. They're pretty much done, right? Because when Russia, the war in Ukraine, Russia is not fighting the Ukrainian army anymore. It is fighting and demilitarizing NATO. So they are the ones with weakened conventional capabilities, not the Russians. The Russian strategic regional deterrent forces have thus become increasingly important for the Russian military power. The agency's assessment concluded that Russia will continue to maintain and further develop its nuclear arsenal in the coming years. Though Russian President Vladimir Putin has mostly avoided direct talk of using nuclear weapons during Russia's war in Ukraine, which will reach the one-year mark on February 24th, Kremlin officials like Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council and former president of Russia, and various members of Russia's state-controlled media, have floated the possibility of nuclear weapons in recent weeks. In a January post on his Telegram channel, Medvedev invoked the possibility of nuclear war should Russia be defeated in Ukraine. Defeat of a nuclear power in conventional war may trigger a nuclear war, he wrote. They're taking that, but he doesn't say they, let's see here. Yeah, he invoked the possibility. Absolutely. I think both sides have, actually. Norway's, because like I say, Russia considers the whole NATO's encroachment on its borders, and especially Ukraine, right, as a huge threat. Historically speaking, if you're going to invade Russia, Ukraine and Poland were the two countries that a lot of invaders would come from, right? So yeah. Norway's intelligence report warned about the dangers of NATO being directly drawn into the war in Ukraine due to unintended incidents. Russian decisions are characterized by strong distrust of Western intentions. This perception has been significantly reinforced as a result of the West's reaction to the invasion of Ukraine, the report said. Both the likelihood of misunderstandings between Russia and NATO and unintended incidents increase, which in turn increases the risk of escalation. And Newsweek has tried to reach both the foreign affairs ministers of Norway and Russia, right? That's what it says here. But I've said before that Russia really has no reason to trust the West. I mean, how can you trust the West? Donald Trump broke away from the INF Treaty, right? Then you have the 27-year-old apply or how should I say, request from Russia that please don't absorb former Soviet states into NATO, which the West promised not to do, right? Not to do. Like they promised that we will not absorb Poland, Bulgaria, and all these former satellite Soviet states into NATO. But they didn't listen. They broke that promise, right? Then Ukraine was applying for a NATO membership, which was unacceptable. And then you have the comments from Angela Merkel, former President Hollande of France, right? Petro Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine. You have the Naftali, former Prime Minister of Israel, who all of them said that the Minsk agreements were nothing but a sham, right? We just signed that so we can buy time, pump the Ukraine with a bunch of weapons and make it into a de facto NATO army so we can kill Russians or Russian-speaking people in the East and eventually fight the Russians. So the Russians have no reason to trust the West. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to go through this short article, and please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get your political commentary from me. Take care, everybody.